Okay, so last notes we talked about whether something is proportional or not, whether a relationship is proportional or not. So today we're going to talk about the constant proportionality. The constant proportionality is another name for the unit rate. Remember, it's your something per 1. And it tells us the amount that your y changes by for every 1 that your x value changes. So pretty much it's like your money you make per hour, or miles per hour, or money it costs you per text, which y'all don't pay per text anymore, but we used to have to. So those relationships have a unit rate. It's per hour, so you know that if you work this many hours, you get paid that much. There are non-proportional relationships, which will be what we'll talk about next unit. But for this unit, we're just talking about proportional relationships, where if you work 0 hours, you get paid 0 amounts of money. If you drive 0 hours, you have driven 0 miles. If you send 0 texts, you don't owe any money. So, which table below represents a proportional relationship? Explain how you know. So you can tell if something has a proportional relationship by what you will multiply 1 times the same thing times, we call it K. So K represents your constant proportionality. And the reason why K represents constant proportionality is because C is taken by, so anytime you see C in math or science, typically that means speed of light. So, yeah, which is weird, but that just does. So in math we use K to represent the constant proportionality. So we want to figure out if you're multiplying by the same thing every single time. Well, in this first one, you can figure that out by taking your y and dividing it by your x. So you have 1k equals 60. Well, if you divide by 1, which is your x, it'll give you k, right? So you take your y and you divide it by your x to see if it gives you the same thing. Well, 1 divided by 60 is 60. 80 divided by 2 is 40. Is this relationship constant? I don't even need to go down this one. Are these the same thing? Because if it was the same thing, that would be meaning that 1 times 60 is 60. That would mean 2 times it would have to be times 60. Well, 2 times 60 is 120. So I can already tell that this relationship is not proportional. So let's do that the other ways. So you're going to take your y's divided by your x's. And so your k equals your y divided by x. So if I take 15 divided by 1, 20 divided by 2, and 30 divided by 3, it should give me the same thing. Well, 30 divided by 3 is 10, 20 divided by 2 is 10, but is 15 divided by 1 10? No, it's 15. So that means 1 times 15 gives you 15, 2 times 10 gives you 20, times 10. You want it to be the same thing. Since it's not the same thing right there, it's not proportional. Alright, our next graph. We have y and x. So our constant proportionality is y divided by x. So we get 48 divided by 1, 96 divided by 2, and I'm running out of room, so it's going to move over. 144 divided by 3. Well, each time I divide those out, I get the same thing. That's our unit rate. So I'm multiplying by the same thing every single time. So it is proportional. the unit rate is $48 per hour. That's how you know that something is proportional, is if it's the constant per hour. Notice on all these, the first hour you get 60, second hour 40, third hour you're actually decreasing by 33 on the first one. So you're decreasing. Second one, it doesn't stay the same per hour. Okay, and then which relationship below represents a proportional relationship? So we talked about how a proportional relationship is multiplying by the same thing every single time. Okay, so you can actually write that as you take your y and you're multiplying your x times k. Notice we're not adding anything to it or anything like that. We're just multiplying by a number. Alright, so this one is just multiplying by a number. A is just multiplying by a number. C is just multiplying by one number. So those relationships are proportional. And the number you're multiplying x by is your k, is your unit rate. So my k in this case is 5. My k on A is 5. My k on C is 0.5. So every time on C, for every minute or whatever M represents, you're multiplying it by 0.5 to give you your P. So that's how you can tell that relationships are proportional, is they're not adding something. They're not subtracting something. It is only you're multiplying by that something. So that's how you can figure out what K is. So K can be found 2 different ways. And I'm going to write that under the next part of the page. So K, when you're on a table or graph, so remember K is your constant proportionality. Messing up. You can find K by taking Y and dividing it by X. So your unit rate, remember your unit rate is K. If it's an equation, your K is just the number you're multiplying X by. So the number that's in front of X is K. So that's easy to do. We're going to get some work on that this week. So now back to graphing proportional relationships, which we talked about a little bit about yesterday. When a proportional relationship is graphed, it always forms a straight line and it will pass through the origin. Remember, the origin is 0, 0. In other words, they're linear. Linear is just a fun word for a straight line. And pass through the origin. So I'm just going to draw a few examples. That's proportional. That's proportional. Is this proportional? No, not proportional. Alright, so we're going to get some work on identifying K and proportional relationships.